My name is Molly Alice Minx, Sister Molly Alice Minx. Tonight I'm going to, it's afternoon, it's tonight. Tonight I'm going to be talking about death and rebirth, as well as differing cycles of our life and queer persistence through it all. We're going to see if we, oh, there we go. My service henchman, Sister Laffy Taffeta, is over here, and she's controlling the keys. She's our maestro of sorts. So, just to start, I wanted to say that, put simply, when anyone experiences ego disillusion, one experiences, Jesus, let's just take 3 breaths. Oh God, don't we feel better? So, Fiona Slight is a psychology student at the University of Massachusetts, and she and her colleagues have delved into this entire study about ego disillusion versus connectivity and integration of psychedelics and how to further your experience with them through these 2 kind of principles. So she states, put simply, when one experiences ego disillusion, one experiences, to varying degrees, a loss of their ordinary sense of self. So ego disillusion is achieved through various avenues and routes and severity. If you think of it as like a wavelength, then there are some ways in which you experience ego disillusion on your walk to school, driving to work. Other times you experience ego disillusion through running a marathon, could never be me, putting on makeup, and manifesting as the sisters do, lip syncing to your favorite song, even the act of reading. Gross. I'm just kidding. We love literacy here. When being absorbed into an enjoyable and engaging activity, time seems to become timeless and our self-conscious nature dissolves. So it's when you get into that euphoric, trance-like state, when you really don't think about the me, the I, the dreaded pronouns of it all, the removing of the self is this ego disillusion that we are going to be talking about today. In ordinary consciousness, we experience ourselves completing actions or feeling emotions or thinking thoughts. However, in times of ego disillusion, that I narrative fades from view. This experience can be profound and positive, which reinforces that we're not alone. And because of this, we realize that community is most important, as well as unity, when realizing that we're not completely alone during this kind of world-reckoning perspective change that we experience. So unity and community is the proverbial thread that unites our glittering tapestry of existence that we have. Unity is the sense of being united, whether it's community-wise, interpersonally, faith-based, familial-based, chosen family-based, whereas community is a sense of recognizing yourself in an outward group, be it through common interests or shared backgrounds. So, as queer people, we live at the intersections of many different avenues. We are at the intersection of masculinity and femininity. We are at the intersection of being recognized as members and contributing people to society, as artists, as creatives, as healers. but then we're villainized when we try and promulgate that joy in ways that are shame-based and villainized. So this susceptibility to being on the divine in between that we are, it makes us acutely aware of our thoughts, our emotions, our perceptions, as well as any kind of subtle changes in the environment. By being on high alert constantly for protection, queer people are naturally more susceptible to daydream, endorse paranormal beliefs, as well as experience altered states of consciousness. Personal belief, personal journey, I feel like this also is the same thread that threads femininity to this receptive, altogether intuitive nature, where as being on high alert constantly as a predatory-prey relationship dichotomy, it makes you more keen to different changes within your own body or different ways in which you think of things or how the world interacts with you differently. So for millennia, queer people have always been at the root of healing, tradition, and general knowledge bases, as well as queer shamanism. If we break it down to where we are geographically, we refer to the term Two-Spirit, which is with the indigenous First Americans. It is this recognition of both feminine and masculine energy, traditionally through First Nations cultures. It's not a sly term for bisexual, sorry. Jason Mraz recently coined the term Two-Spirit, if everyone wanted to know. Mahu is the third gender in and of itself, and so that is commonly found in Pacific Island culture as well as Tahitian culture. But even in those cultures, this proverbial thread of queerness, of this othering, is identified and embraced and celebrated. They are known as keepers of cultural tradition. So through oral tradition, through storytelling, through mere presence, this entire subsect of a culture was revered and continued to pass down that tradition of stories that may not have fit a pretty narrative that would live in a history book. There are also healers and spiritual guides, so they would be the ones who would be your trip sitters, and they would make sure that there was no harm coming to you via any kind of spiritual protection or be it physical health. Making sure that you're turned over or backpacked, as one would lovingly do. And again, they're the embodiment of both masculine and feminine. So with the rise of colonialism, these outliers were easily identified and cast aside, leading to the erasure of decades of tradition and identity. This is a narrative that is far too common and is far too real, especially nowadays when we're talking about things like drag queen storytime being a hot button issue, as well as identifying trans athletes as the issue when it's only 1% of the entire population. It's a very easy way to zoom in on something that's outside and something that's easily identifiable. Queer shamanism has dated back to ancient Mesopotamia with the goddess Inanna, or Ishtar in her later years of later Mesozoic era, or Mesopotamic era. Modern day shamans identify as the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, as well as the Radical Fairy Movement and the Cockettes, which all have ties to the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Even drag artists of all kind represent a lineage of queer shamanism, this sacred clown archetype that's found throughout history, throughout any kind of novel and storytelling. This reverence during a time of grief, or this levity, the sacred clown energy during a time of grief. I can speak personally. Sisters do a lot of events that are memorials, as well as remembrance nights, such as Pulse Remembrance, Trans Night of Remembrance, amongst many others. So being a sacred clown in those deeper, darker times really can affect a community in such a positive way that you really don't understand until you're part of it. And that's a thread that kind of keeps all of these mystical queer outliers together. Sure. So a little bit about the sistery of it all. We are the members of the City of Fountain Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. So we are one single house that branched out of the mother house, which was founded in San Francisco in Easter Sunday of 1979. The lore goes, and it changes with every single person that you ask. Some change it for vanity, others change it to throw their sister under the bus. But lore goes that 4 queer men traveled their way across the United States. On their way, they ventured to a convent and said that they were going to put on a production of The Sound of Music. Were they putting on a production of The Sound of Music? Maybe not. They go to San Francisco in 1979, and they donned their nun habits on Easter Sunday, and they promulgated universal joy and expiated stigmatic guilt. The members of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, the founders, are Sister Vicious Power Hungry Bitch. You can call her Vish. Sister Missionary Position, commonly referred to as Mish, later known as Sister So Am I Deluxe. Sister Hysterectoria, as well as Reverend Mother. Other sisters include Sister Homofellatio, Sister Mary Eveready, Sister Sensible Shoes, which is what I am endorsing today, Sister Mary Rich, which is what Laffy is endorsing today, Sister Loganberry Frost, Sister Boom Boom, Sister Quaalude Conduct, Sister Stigmata, Sister Banana Nut Bread, we love our food, Sister Sleaze, Sister Rosanna Hosanna, Fella Banana. This is so fun. So the sisters devoted themselves to community service, ministry, and outreach. To those on the edges and to promoting human rights, respect for diversity, as well as spiritual enlightenment. We use humor and irreverent wit to expose the forces of bigotry, complacency, and guilt that chain the human spirit. So, in direct opposition to this facade of traditional nun, we identify as these kind of sacred middle fingers, while doing the same exact quintessential work that traditional nuns will do. So we interact with our community. We're a 501c3 organization, so we hold money and we give money to various charity organizations throughout whatever city we are occupied in. Our specific house is the City of Fountains, so we are Kansas City's maidens and mothers. Meanwhile, we have houses all over the continental United States, as well as Australia, all the way up in the UK, and then we have a few rogue nuns flailing around any given country. Specialties of your City of Fountain Sisters, as well as any sister, traditionally is going to be blessings, exorcisms specifically for police presence and brutality, as well as saintings of members within the queer community. Within the last calendar year, I know that we have sainted Leah Hopkins, who is a Kansas City native. She was the founder of Kansas City's Pride, which I believe was in 1977. She was the original Playboy bunny of color. And she is a proud, out and loud lesbian. Are we surprised that it took a person of color lesbian to initiate any kind of pride? No, I'm not at all. So, also in our own backyard, we have GLAMA, which is the Gay and Lesbian Archives of Mid-America. It's founded in UNKC. It is the largest collection of historical LGBTQIA+ archives within the Midwest. It's a very cool trip if you have a little afternoon free. It's free for all. It showcases Kansas City's role in queer presence throughout history. Kansas City, as being in the heart of the continental United States, as well as being a river city, allowed for a lot of proliferation of arts, of money, and which inadvertently would help with people maybe getting their jollies, looking at the clowns dancing down the street. Our notable sites of like drag of the yesteryear would be sites like the Jewel Box, which is over off of 39th Street and Troost, I believe. And then there's also the Dixie Belle, as well as Birds of Paradise, amongst many, many others. There are newspaper articles that even date back into the 1920s talking about Julian Eltinge, who was a notable cross-dresser. And so they would go by their stage name or their government names, and then they would perform in the different gender. Stuart Hines is the one who has kind of curated everything at GLAMA, and he is one of our very near and dear patrons as well. So, now to the nitty-gritty. We're talking about going down this psychedelic journey. For whatever reason, we might be already pursuing that avenue. When experiencing the psychedelic journey, one must remember before starting, why? Why are you going down this? Are you wanting to explore a different avenue of yourself? Are you wanting to dissolve something that no longer serves you? Remember that everything is temporary. Pain is temporary. What you think might be ego-shattering in this very moment can eventually fade away. Not everything is as prescient as it seems right in the very moment. So try and remember to take your few breaths, to catch your breath, and to come back to center. Take what serves you and release what doesn't. You don't need to take everything that you see or experience or interact with. Sometimes you just see the kids are officially gone, you just see some fucked up shit. And it's not anything that you need to hold with you. It might have just been a purging that can be released with the winds. So before delving down your journey, let's lay a nice ground path of why you're going down it. Are you wanting to shed what no longer serves you? Are you trying to discover this whole new sense of self? Are you trying to release from this old narrative that you keep on repressing? Or are you just doing it for fun? Are you just trying to see what kind of guides you and where you end up down the line? Because everything is okay, but realizing that you're not there for a specific reason can make you feel a little bit like the weight is lifted. So as Carolyn has already stated, set and setting is very important, especially in reference to experiencing this altered state. It helps to reduce the risk factors of having that dreaded bad trip, and helps to make you feel more in control in a situation that is otherwise not necessarily super controlled. Set is your psychological state, how you enter into it, your attitude, your expectations of the person who's about to go through that psychedelic experience. Meanwhile, your setting is going to be that physical, cultural context in which the experience will take place. So, when going down this journey, trying to keep in mind that you are in a constant state of flux and that you might be on that wavelength of that ego disillusion versus connectedness, then it makes you kind of, it can be world-shattering. So, when we're talking about ego versus true self, when we're talking about ego, we're talking about this self-image, these collective beliefs, these thoughts or conceptions which influence the way any given person would live their life. It's kind of like this outside facade that we put on. Meanwhile, your true self, or the core of one's being, the source of authenticity, of love, of intuition, it's a part of us that is unswayed by any kind of external validation or any kind of societal pressures. Now that we have the boring definitions out of the way, moral of the story is everyone dies. I don't know if you guys know this, but we're always one step closer to death, and isn't that so exciting? We as humans are in a constant state of this regeneration and rebirth. We're finding ourselves constantly. We've never experienced a day that we are in the exact same position that we're in, with the exact same consciousness that we have, with the friends that we have around us, with the family that we have around us. Be it psychologically, be it socially, be it spiritually or physically, we are constantly changing and ever evolving. So my personal viewpoint, let's talk about me for a second. I am, in my secular life, I'm a labor and delivery and a NICU nurse. So I see birth literally daily, whether I want to or not. I'm a witness to the beginning of life, but I also witness the end to another. I see a sacrificing of the old self almost daily. These people who come in and completely release themselves to the fact of being a parent, they leave that space not being the same people that they enter as. It's a constant change and a flux of a world-shifting view that in some fraction we experience daily ourselves, whether it's you catching yourself at the grocery aisle, realizing maybe I need to buy a candy bar for my boo that's at home, or if it's going the extra route so that way you can see your grandma's house on the way home. Those ways in which our world shifts to further include other people is what makes us who we are today. So this self-focused narrative to this sharp, sudden zoom out is kind of a fraction of what I see when we talk about the psychedelic use and kind of the shifting narratives. Though change is rarely easy or comfortable, resisting change only makes it less comfortable. So the advice that I would give is to kind of relax into the moment and try not to fight the lessons that you're experiencing or the cues that are coming when you're going through the psychedelic experience. That will allow it to go by faster, and that'll allow you to move through it in a more seamless way. So studies show that both ego dissolution as well as connectedness, excuse me, I feel a bubble burping up, that both ego dissolution and connectedness are associated with a higher chance of improvement following a psychedelic experience. So this world-shattering narrative mixed with this innate sense of community based on the set versus the setting of how you integrate this medicine can lead to those changes being lasting and long-term. I can speak specifically that my experience with psychedelics in regards to the set and setting, the sisters do a lot of trips over out at Camp Gaia, which is kind of a rippling of the radical fairy movement. And I had a mushroom experience while I was over there, and I don't think that I would have had such a profound experience if it wasn't for the people that I surrounded myself with. The way that I felt so uplifted and supported within the members of my own community allowed me to kind of move through harsher emotions that I don't think if I was just by myself, I would have been able to move through as fast. So ego dissolution appears to trigger psychological change, but it does not typically exceed the psychedelic experience in its duration. So, however, connectedness can be a more sustained and is associated with several positive, potentially therapeutic feelings afterwards. So moral of the story is this subtle ego dissolution that you can feel on any of that wavelength, and when you're taking these psychedelics, you could be on this very, very high extreme of taking, or of this ego dissolution, feeling like you're not in your own body. Typically, it's only going to last until that psychedelic experience is done. So realize how temporary that is, and that the lasting effects can be with that interconnectedness that you feel through the setting and the people and the way that you curate these psychedelic experiences. Making sure that you take what serves you and leave what doesn't can help make those lasting changes more lasting. Questions about drugs? I did want to kind of kick it over to my associate sisters who have popped in to speak either about their own sister journey or about their own journey with psychedelics through sistering. Let's kick it off with Sister D.
Hi, I'm Sister Decompose. I'm the current abbess of the City of Fountain Sisters. And I'm a big giant baby and have never done psychedelics and did not smoke weed for the first time until I was at Gaia with the sisters. And I don't like to be out of control of my body in any semblance of way, and once had a terrible panic attack on sativa. So instead, I'm going to talk about sistering. I've seen what a profound impact psychedelic use can have for those that are doing it responsibly. I was not participating, but I was there for the. I bore witness to Sister Molly falling off a chair, allegedly. She was caught, it was fine, by a very burly sister, bless him. And, but yeah, I've been a sister for like 4 years, something. And to me, sistering you get as much or as little out of it as what you put into it. You can just, put on the makeup and go to a bar and sit in the corner and drink an overpriced shot or whatever and think about how pretty you are, and that's fine and great, but it's so much more than that, and it can be so much more than that. And I think that we can all be so much more than that. It's about serving the community, and like Molly said, and interacting and expiating this stigmatic guilt, and really promulgating joy and being the weird ones in the room so that everybody else can, because nobody's looking at you, they're looking at whatever this is on my face, and my big silly hat, and my weird dress, and the boy in a dress and makeup, and they don't care that you are having a bad hair day or you're in a queer relationship or whatever, because they're too busy looking at us. And that's what we want. We want to be the weirdest people in the room so you can be yourselves. And yeah, and I'm really grateful to be a sister. I'm really happy to be here. Really glad for the experience. I actually didn't know when I became a sister, the person that asked me to be a sister, I said, I can't be a sister because I'm not a gay man. And I didn't know that there were cis female sisters. I didn't know that there were straight sisters. I didn't know that there were anything, sisters in heterosexual relationships. And I don't know, sexuality is a spectrum. Nobody's like that straight, in my opinion, but it's just, it's a journey, and I'm really glad to be here. And if you're interested in what we do, shameless plug, you can join us. Anybody can be a sister. All you have to do is be 21, at least 21, because we do a lot of bar ministry, and so there's some grandfathered in exceptions, but for the most part, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna give this to Sister Laffy Taffeta.
I am not a baby. Yeah, I have had a lot of experience with psychedelics in my years. I'm Sister Laffy Taffeta. I've been with the sisters for 5 or 6 years. 2018 is when I joined. But actually, 7 years. For me, in some ways that I don't always even necessarily think about, psychedelics kind of saved my life. I, as you might guess, experienced some religious trauma in my life. I was a pastor's kid, and that I was a biblical studies major for 2 years. I was a very devout Christian for the majority of my life, and very gay for all of it. And those, for me, not everyone, but for me, those were two very incongruent things. And so I did not, I was actually a part of ex-gay therapy by choice from the ages of 14 to 19 for about 6 years. And it was really damaging. It was hard. It really gives you this kind of skewed sense of self and skewed sense of morality. And when I dropped out of Bible school at 19, and I was never homeless, but I did move into my friend's basement, and with no job, no car, I just knew I couldn't be at Bible school anymore. And I really lost a lot of my sense of identity and sense of self. I didn't really know who I was or what I was going to do, because being a youth pastor like my dad was my whole identity, my entire life. And so it was shortly after then that, I did start experimenting with drugs. I was not always practicing safely. I was young and kind of dumb. But this is when I was introduced to psychedelics. And in one of my early experiences, I kind of had the first tap into what I now understand as collective effervescence, and just the idea of humanity being connected and all of us being connected to each other in that way. And it really just kind of sparked a change in myself and a change in the way I viewed myself and those around me, and kind of led me down an alternative spiritual path that I didn't even really know that I needed. And it kind of culminated in me finding the sisters, and finding a way to live out the ministry that had always been in my heart, where I wanted to interact with the community in that way, but not in, some of the toxic religious ways that I had grown up. And sistering really provided that outlet for me. And a lot of fun times on psychedelics too. But I think that's all I really had to share. Yeah.
Whoop whoop. Those are my sisters.
I didn't know we were just dumping we were sharing religious trauma going in.
I know. Well, speaking of religious trauma,
If there's a sister that doesn't have religious trauma, they're not a sister. Fully believe.
my personal experience, I am K through 12 Catholic Jesuit school, so we live, we eat, we breathe, and all of that. I have a little bit of a different narrative. I'm very blessed. I have, God rest her soul, old Irish grandma who walked out of the cathedral as soon as they started talking about pro-life, and told all of her children to make more noise when they were leaving, to be more disruptive, and that's the woman that raised me. So I have this weird relationship where I have such great memories of this faith and these people who are so devout, but it's caused so much trauma for my loved ones around me or for friends that I meet down the line. And so my relationship with faith and identity is so kind of juxtaposed by this sharp versus this really soft narrative. And so that's why I feel like sistering, like my sister Laffy, has kind of become such an important piece of my life, is it's this kind of queer folk magic that we all kind of practice and kind of fell into, where we pick and choose what we love of one versus what we really don't align with. And along the lines, we find our people. And I think that's the most important thing, is just realizing that you're not alone. You'll never be alone. You never were alone. That there are a lot of people who really will fight there for you, fight there with you, whether you've never met them or not. And some of them might just be dressed like us. Who would have thought? I think I have one. Look at me. I have some sources, and that's what they are. We're done.